Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, that was kind of a weak hit on the bell there. It was because it was with my left hand. That was the problem. Just a little off on the strike. Just like the weather this morning, just a little off, but that's okay. So we're glad to be here. This happens every year, and I hear people say, "Oh, this is terrible. It's snowing." Like, I have been here now I think this is almost my 7th complete cycle here in ELKR. It's done this every April. Don't try to tell me you're surprised. This happens every time. I think it's probably happened a time or two in May too. So welcome to the ELKR Rotary Club. Members and guests, we're glad you're here today. I would like to invite someone up to do an invocation. Rob, normally this is filled in on my thing, but it's not today. So either great scheduling or way to just step up and volunteer. That's what we like to see, volunteers. Just step up.
Yeah, I'd like to claim that this is just off the cuff, but it's not at all. So, in Paul's letter to the Philippians, he writes to rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to all men. The Lord is at hand. Please spend a moment with me in prayerful reflection. Father God, you have instructed us to be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, make your request known to God. And your peace, which we can't possibly understand, will guard our hearts and minds. You have encouraged us to be joyful. In Psalms 30, it says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. As we celebrated Easter yesterday, we think about how your disciples must have wept and about the indescribable joy that came in the morning when they found the tomb empty. As we find our joy in you, let us remember to be gentle to all others, and to serve others. I thank you now for this food, blessed unto our bodies, and bless the hands that prepared it. In your name alone we pray, amen. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. It's the prayer of all concerned. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you very much, Rob. And to introduce our guests today, and checked you in when you came in, is Steve Tallheimer, right? I gotta say, it's a nice day for e-learning of all days. My son was very happy to not be getting up and going to school today. So working at home. So thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Eric. First, we'll start over here with the table to my right. Candy Yoder has a guest.
I do have a guest.
And also at that table, Peter Norton has a guest.
Adrian Riley, he's with the ELKR Police Department.
Julie Cotton has a guest. Finally, Bill Reed has a guest today.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Julie Yoder. She's in charge of all of our volunteer education.
Thank you.
Excellent. Welcome to all of our guests. We appreciate you being here today. All right, if you have an announcement, actually really quick, let's do cameras on here, or we'll spin this around so that everybody can see. And we'll do this Hollywood Squares view so that you can see who's here and everyone else can see who's in the room. Thank you, Andy, again, Garrick, Deb Oza, David Tony, Judge Cristofino, nice to see you, Linda Ruppnow, Mandy, Terry Rickle, welcome from Florida, I'm thinking. And good, you're better off being there today than you are here. Randy Foster, Steve Conan, Zach Howard on the iPhone. Do we know who that is? Andy? And Jason Pippinger. Thanks so much for being here. We appreciate it. All right. How was that turn? Was that, I'm getting better with my camera work. All right. Do my own stunts too. Okay. Go ahead, Pete, since you're up here, make your announcement. We're going to do Thursday, this Thursday at the Brass Elk at 5 o'clock. We'll do it the rest of the month of April there, and in May we'll go back to Artisan. So hope to see you. Thursday at Brass Elk. Excellent. And if you do or you don't go to the Brass Elk on Thursday, there's still space if you would like to RSVP to come out to Wellfield for a Earth Day happy hour. We are greeting Greg Masson. He's on a cross-country bicycle ride, and I'm sure he's loving the weather today. This is where hopefully wherever he's at. He's riding an e-bike about 3,400 miles across the Lincoln Highway and tracing the footsteps of Dwight Eisenhower. There is so much, I can't go into it right here, but there is peripheral neuropathy. There is Dwight Eisenhower. There is the liberation of the Netherlands. There's the fact that Greg, that is his heritage. It's e-bike, it's Earth Day. There's just, and it's Friday, and it's at Wellfield. It's a great place to come. We'll have some beer, wine, help us make Greg feel welcome, and we'll have some beer and wine and refreshments there. Come and enjoy at 5:30. You can come anytime. We'll be there for a couple hours. The J&K Kissinger Awards due April 20th, so Wednesday. We've gotten several that have come in, which is awesome, from other clubs, and I think there's actually been a couple that have been submitted from clubs who have not had a Kissinger Award winner, and we'll keep you updated on those. County Road 6 cleanup. I will pass this around. I probably saw most of you, but I'll pass it around again, and then someone's going to remind me, Eric, grab the clipboard because Tom couldn't stay. Don't lose Tom's clipboard, or probably more importantly, the sign-up list. Thank you for getting that getting around there. May 14th, we're going to do a water stop for Girls on the Run 5K in Elkhart. I will get that sign-up sheet or that sign-up link. You can do it online. It's a piece of cake, and it'll be a lot of fun. That's going to be on the morning of Saturday, May 14th. It's a couple hours in the morning. It's going to be great. It's over on Jackson, just on the south side of the river, and we'll help pass out some water and make everybody hydrated along the way. Thanks to those who came out to the new member refresher. Let's see, Jameson, Mo. Let's see, who else do we have there? I've got Larry Knight. I can't read my own handwriting. Rickoff, it was nice that you were there. Mick Falloon, Julie. We didn't solve all the global problems, but we're working on that. So you may be getting some information or some questions asked of you about maybe what our next big thing is going to be. And I'm doing a little bit of pre-work on that, but I want everyone to be thoughtful about what are some of the big things that we could do in Elkhart, whether that's a thing or a concept. And one of the ideas is that maybe becomes a concept that we can get a lot of programs around. So you'll hear more about this soon. Donations committee, Bill's working on that. If you're on the donations committee, there's a whole lot of applications that we've received for grants. Upcoming board meetings, obviously the first and second week or Friday of May. Next week, we have Chris Spataro. Thanks again, Judge, for taking this month and getting some great guests, including the Chief of Police today. This will be fantastic. And Julie.
Thanks again to everyone who has signed up for the South Bend Cubs game. That is the day after the Girls on the Run, so you can just have a Rotary weekend with us. So those of you who are coming to help empower girls at Girls on the Run, great. And then the next day, it's Sunday Fun Day at the South Bend Cubs. Many of you have already signed up, and hey, thank you for that. We still have 8 spots left in our suite. And then we have reserved an extra 50 in case we just want to go crazy and invite all of our family and friends to join us on May 15th. We can still do that at 2 o'clock. And then also coming up the pike, be on the lookout. We're going to have a very active summer socially. We will be having, Jameson's gonna lead us down the river in kayaks at some point. That's gonna happen. I feel like there's more coming. Someone has invited us to their home. I think we're still working out the details of a Rotary home backyard party kind of thing. And if that's something that you would wanna host, please feel free to talk to me, and we're looking for more opportunities to collect together and gather and be social. Thanks.
Thank you, Julie. And hey, Jameson, that's kind of exciting. Kayak trip down the river, or kayaks, canoes, something like that. So the percentage that you've got to bring back as your role with the city, was it like 90%? That was always my. You got to take out 9, you got to bring out back 8 or something like that. That's the way it works. So yeah, it could be fun. Everyone's excited to sign up for that one. All right. Every program or every meeting, we raise some fun finds to give away to not-for-profits to help extend our efforts in the community. And today, Bill Reith is going to ask you to put some money in the basket. In a fun, creative, and I know educational way. I always learn things from it.
Thank you, Eric. That's not as quite as enthusiastic as I would like, but still better than some of my other sergeants. So today I'm really looking forward to hearing from our ELKR Chief of Police. And speaking of police, I don't know if you heard, but the perfect crime was committed last night. In fact, it happened right down in Marshall County. Someone broke into the police station and they stole all the toilets. Police say they have nothing to go on. Also, in local law enforcement news, it was reported that the celery got arrested. They charged him with stalking. So if you either laughed or groaned at these fictional crime stories, then put in a buck. Now, I'd like to share some supposedly true police reports from the local papers, the police blotter sections of our local newspapers across the country. One local paper stated that at 2:58 p.m., the Learning Child Care Center reported a man across the street standing in his window for hours every day watching the center, making the staff and parents very nervous. Police then investigated and ID'd the subject as a cardboard cutout of Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you've ever owned a cutout figure of Arnold Schwarzenegger, or watched one of his movies, or wished you had a cardboard cutout figure of Arnold, then put in a buck. This is from August the 8th, 2017 from Ventura, California. A man accused of burglarizing a Southern California home took a bathroom break and left DNA evidence in the toilet that led to his arrest, an investigator said Tuesday. The suspect did his business and didn't flush it during the October break-in in the city of Thousand Oaks, said Detective Tom Lowman of the Ventura County Sheriff's Office. That allowed investigators to collect evidence to conduct a DNA profile. It matched another profile in the national database, and detectives tracked down the suspect at his home in nearby city of Ventura. Andrew David Jensen was arrested on July 28th on suspicion of first-degree residential burglary, and his bail was set at $180,000. Lohman said it's the first DNA burglary match case he knows of with fecal evidence collected from a toilet. If you've ever failed to flush a toilet, or ever gotten into trouble for something that you left behind, then put in a buck. From Blaine, Minnesota, a theft report. A woman in the 1900 block of 129th Lane Street Northeast reported that on October the 15th, someone must have stolen her mail because she did not receive any birthday cards. If you were sent a birthday card late or completely forgot to send a birthday card to a friend or a relative, or even, God forbid, your mother, making them feel sad and perhaps worried that their mail also had been stolen, then put in a buck. From Grand Rapids, a theft report. A resident of Grand Rapids told police that someone had entered his home during the night and taken 5 pounds of bacon from the refrigerator. Upon further investigation, the detective reported that the man's wife had gotten up for a late night snack, but was afraid to admit it. If you've ever had a late night snack and were afraid to admit it, or if you've suffered some indigestion because of your snack, then put in a buck. And finally, did you hear about the thief who stole the lamp? He got a light sentence. If you haven't maxed out, please do so.
Oh, DNA evidence from a toilet. That was a crappy joke. It's not as bad as that one. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Bill, and thanks everybody for pitching in. And for those of you online, don't forget, you can go right to our homepage. There is a button up there that says donate, and you can make your donation online with a credit card. It's online, it's not real money. Just put a couple extra zeros on there and call it good. It's all good. Okay, I would like to welcome Jim Rickoff to introduce today's guest.
Every year, the President of the United States personally delivers an address on the state of our nation. In many years, the mayor of Elkhart personally delivers an address about the state of the city. But in almost no years does anyone deliver an address about the state of the Elkhart Police Department. That changes today. Chris Seymour was a local kid. After high school, he joined the Army and achieved a Ranger tag, which we veterans know is a great accomplishment. He came back to join the police department here, 1998. He has served in every rank that the police department has and has filled every role in the department except that of a canine officer. He also became a certified fire investigator. And in 2020, when Mayor Robertson, in a time when the policing profession was suffering a massive hit to its professional reputation, asked him to lead the Elkhart department, he said yes. Over the years, on other avenues, the chief has obtained a criminal justice degree and is working now on a BA at Bethel University, Business Administration. He also co-runs a small business with his wife. He serves as the president of the Bago Community School Board, and on top of all of that, he makes time for his wife and 3 children. This man is a man of great dedication to Elkhart, the Elkhart Police Department, and the men and women who work in the department. He's going to tell you a very interesting story today. It is with great pleasure that I introduce and call up Chief Chris Seymour.
Thank you, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. Judge, I appreciate the invite. This is actually my second time here. The first time, those of you that will recall, was a little less than 2 years ago when I first became chief. And I talked about some of the things that we would like to accomplish at the police department and in our community. At that time, they were obviously just words, and words only carry you so far. So what I'd like to do today is basically an update on what we've done during that time period. And as the judge mentioned, it has been a challenging time. I took over the challenging time, and I've had some people ask me, do I need to get a mental evaluation? Because that was a challenging time for law enforcement across the country. Some of it was not warranted, and some of it was. Some of it was our own fault, some of it wasn't. So you have to put all that into one basket and take out what we can do to improve. Are there things that have been brought up in the last 2 years that police departments can improve upon? Absolutely. I'll be the first one to tell you that. And a lot of that falls on the culture within police departments. So it should be one of professionalism and setting an example in our communities. And that's what I've set out to do. During that time period, we also had COVID. So that didn't throw any curveballs at what we were doing either, trust me. So all that being said, I felt the call of service once again, because I had made up my mind earlier that year to actually retire. And this was before everything happened. And it was just kind of felt like that time for me. I did 10.5 years in the homicide unit and kind of seen enough, I thought. With all the challenges that we were facing, I felt like it was time for me to put up or shut up. So I put up. So there's a couple of key points that I want to talk about. The things that I talked about when I first made the presentation, some of it revolved around our culture, accountability, transparency. A lot of it centered around what we could do to improve the officers' lives, which in turn should parlay into the citizens having better lives. So a lot of that falls on, do the officers have the equipment, the training, the tools that they need to do the job effectively? And a lot of that falls on technology. So we were woefully behind in some technological aspects, and we set out to improve those. So first thing I want to talk about is the accountability and transparency. My estimation, if you're an officer and you go through a 20-year career and you've never been disciplined, then you didn't do the job right. What I mean by that is sometimes when you're chasing bad guys, sometimes you're going to make mistakes. Sometimes you're going to get dinged on that. That doesn't mean that you stop doing it. It means that you learn from that mistake. I'm the king of them. I've made plenty of them. But the difference is if you learn from them, you take ownership, you blame no one else, and you learn from that, and you can pass that on, then you can be successful. So that's one of the things I wanted to do, was increase our accountability. Those of you that have paid attention to the news at all in the last 2 years have seen quite a few stories about our police department. Some of them good, some of them not so good. So I would challenge anybody that never sees anything bad about a police department that they probably don't have accountability within their ranks. Because if you have accountability, those things are going to get exposed, and that's going to show that they're being dealt with. So like I said, if you've seen the news, you've seen that some things have happened, accountability has been put forth, and what we want to do is, with that, create a better culture. Because if the people that you are enforcing the law upon see that you're not leading by example and you're not doing it, then you're a hypocrite. We can't have that kind of culture. Transparency. One of the big things that came out in the last 2 years was body cams, squad cams. Some departments didn't have them. Some didn't have ones that were functioning. We had a system that frankly wasn't the best. So we set out to improve that. Those of you that were here 2 years ago heard me mention Axon. And if you've ever seen a body cam video on the news, you look up in the right-hand corner, it'll say Axon. That's the majority of a lot of the body cams that are out there. So we made that happen, got those deployed pretty quickly. So every officer on the department has one of those, including myself. Every squad car has a squad cam that's connected with that body cam. There's a lot of technology within that where if it picks up the sound of a gunshot, the camera will kick on. It's really easy to use, and we've had a lot of success with it. It's actually been pretty substantial in 2 officer-involved shootings that we've had in the last 2 years. And without them, we could have had some serious issues on our hand. But the fact that we were transparent with it, I know one of those the news has, but they haven't released it yet. We have released them. I don't know what the news is waiting on, but they have it. So that kind of covers the accountability and transparency piece that we really wanted to see from the department. We're also upgrading our records management system, which is essentially every report that's done, every affidavit that's done, that's kept in a centralized location. The one that we have is about 20 years old, almost as long as I've been on the department. So it's not working real well. So we look to upgrade that and have that integrated with our body cams. What that will lead to is, again, the accountability and transparency piece. We haven't been real good at data sharing, right? So people live in neighborhoods, they want to know what's going on in their neighborhood. We don't have the ability to supply that information with the current system. So what I'd like to see is have people be able to see what's going on in their neighborhood, go onto our website, have it be interactive so they can see the trends, they can see, you know, is my street dangerous? Is it safe? What's going on? It also helps us internally be able to deploy and allocate our resources based on data. We still do it the same way we did when I hired them 24 plus years ago. We assign a certain number of officers to a certain part of the city and go get them, guys. So getting with the times with that technology will help us be better at how we deploy and allocate our resources, and also let people know what's going on. One of the exciting things that we're in the process of right now is a new public safety facility. If you've seen the news, that's been actually going on for about 5 years now. It's been kind of hit or miss, and it kind of has rolled with the political cycles. But when Mayor Roberson brought me on, we talked about that. And he said, I want you guys to have everything that you need and all the tools that you need to get the job done. And I've appreciated that, and I think the department has. And one of those things is the new public safety facility, because ours is about 50 years old. It was designed for, at that time, a department that was about 85 officers, and we're double that. So we've outgrown it. When you take into account the laws and rules surrounding evidence storage, that has changed as laws have changed. So we're required to keep different types of evidence for longer periods of time. Well, that takes up space in a city this size. So that was a concern for us. And just being able to have space for and room for growth, that's important. So that's an exciting piece. So let's talk about another thing, online reporting. We've been kind of behind the ball on that too. I think the Sheriff's Department rolled that out maybe 10 years ago, and we're just now doing it. So we'll be making a public announcement on that real soon. We're working out the rest of the kinks. So what that does is what I would call some mundane reports. So you have a theft or a vandalism that there's no suspect information known, but you need it for your insurance. Those type of reports, that takes an officer time to get there, time to take the report, file it. So it's something that if we can have and empower people to do that themselves, they can print off a copy of that, then that saves officers time from having to go out and do those. They can focus on other items. One of the things about our culture, and and some of the things that have changed in the last 2 years too is the emphasis on not only mental health, but other options when it comes to use of force. So what we've done is created what we call our less lethal program, meaning other options, other tools that we can deploy on the street. That's not a gun and it's not fists. That's what I came onto. You had your fist, you had pepper spray, and you had a gun. So as the times have evolved, so have some of the options that we have to deploy on the street. So we have officers that are actually trained in all of these methods. When they go out on the street, they take this equipment with them. And if there's a call where a need for something like that arises, they will be dispatched to that call. So we don't end up having to shoot someone, or we don't have to put hands on. Some of those options are a 40 millimeter launcher. It looks very, very intimidating, but it shoots foam rounds, okay? So you aim for the leg, you shoot them with a foam round, they go down, you can put handcuffs on, and everybody's safe. You might leave a little bit of a bruise, but people live to tell about it, and we don't put our officers in harm in certain situations. We also have pepper ball guns. Basically, if you've seen a paintball gun, it looks just like that, except inside those capsules are like pepper spray or powder. And it's used to incapacitate somebody so officers can safely make an arrest. We also have, and this is kind of futuristic, when I first saw it, I thought it was like a science fiction movie. They're called bowler wraps. So it's essentially like it comes out of a gun, but it's like ropes with weights on them that will actually tie up a suspect's legs or wrap their arms around their body, so it incapacitates them, so an officer can again move in and make a safe arrest. Just a few things that we can deploy on the street that makes everybody safer. I mentioned mental health. One of the things that we looked at, well, actually before I even took the job, was talking about mental health. It's a problem in policing. And that comes from a personal space for me. Obviously, doing as long a time as I did in homicide, I've seen a lot. Seen more dead children than probably everybody in this room combined. It takes its effect on you when officers see and deal with broken families, hurt families, accident victims, you name it. And what happens is officers focus on getting the job done, and they don't focus on themselves. They just keep going and going and going. But what happens is after a certain amount of time, I always call it putting it in the box. So you take that trauma and you put it over here in the box and you focus on doing the job. Well, eventually the box fills up. Now what? Well, you have officers that maybe have misconduct. Maybe they drink. Maybe they have a domestic situation. Maybe they act out in anger on the street. We've seen that several times play out. Not an excuse for certain types of behavior, but it's definitely causal. So looking at that, how can we fix that? So for us to be effective out on the street and to help other people that may be going through a similar situation, how can we do that if we're not okay ourselves? So the program that we put together, and I'll talk about Adrian's role in this too, is making healthier officers that can go out in the community and help other people become healthy. Plugging them into resources that they may not know about, plugging them into resources that we may not know about. So it's getting more hands involved in this, okay, instead of us trying to always figure it out ourselves. So we put together a program. We got the funding through the mayor and city council for 4 positions, mental health social workers to, number one, address address any issues inside for officers that they may be dealing with. Maybe they can get a referral. Maybe they can deal with something quicker. We would use them for what we call critical incident debriefs. So if we have a major incident, we bring all the officers involved in and we just talk. And that, as simple as that sounds, means a lot. You can process those type of things with somebody else that's been through it or somebody else that's a professional. You understand that it's normal to feel that way. So, and then another part of that, the other side of that is having those folks available for those in our community that are suffering from mental health crisis or substance abuse, what have you. An officer can only take that so far. We just don't have the resources. We're adept at it in dealing with those folks, but you can only take it so far. So what happens is you deal with that person day in, day out. Then you become cynical. So if we can stop that and we have a mechanism to refer those people to, somebody that can follow up on the back end and plug those folks into resources, just maybe the officer doesn't have to deal with them week in and week out. Maybe that officer doesn't become cynical because it's the same person that they've dealt with 5 days out of the 5 days. So if we can reduce the recidivism, we can plug people into resources, maybe we make a difference. So we have those 4 positions where if you know anybody that his heart is in the right place and has that type of training, please visit our website or the city's website. I believe they're getting ready to be reposted here real soon. So I'm hopeful for that program. In addition to that, Adrian Riley's here with us today. Adrian's our training and community liaison. It's a new position that we created to help bridge the gap between our community and the police department. Been trying over and over again. It's usually we take a cop and we take a square peg and try to put them in a round hole. So we wanted to rethink our approach to that. How do we put somebody in there that understands what the community wants and needs, but also understands what our officers need and what our officers do? That's a unique person, because if you have never done law enforcement, it's hard to understand that world. And if you don't have ties and connections to the community, you're going to have a hard time communicating across that spectrum. So we found the perfect person. Adrian spent some time working in the jail, Elk County Jail, so he has some law enforcement experience, and grew up in not so ideal conditions, so he understands certain segments of the community that we have, frankly, trouble communicating with at times. So he's been able to make some relationships and cultivate a lot of that with a lot of, I mean, just across the spectrum, everywhere from business owners to anyone in our community. So I've been very, very happy. I'm glad to have you on the team. Don't mean to embarrass you, but I had it on my list to mention you. I won't go on and on, but he's been a blessing to our team. I actually seek him out for counsel myself because there's certain things that I don't understand. So it's a great thing that we have in moving forward, and I appreciate you. We also brought on a civilian public information officer. So again, over the years, we've taken cops and we've said, hey, why don't you deal with the media? You like to talk. Sometimes that doesn't work out real well. So again, kind of rethinking how we police in some ways. What's the best way to approach that? Well, how about instead of making a cop, do that and mold them that way, why don't you bring in somebody that actually has that background that maybe doesn't know anything about law enforcement, but they know how to communicate, they understand media relations, and that's what we did. So we brought someone over that never been a cop, never had any experience in that, and she's been, Jessica McBriar is her name, she's our public information officer. She's been great. It takes a load off of my plate because Maybe I'm not the best communicator when the media is around. I kind of like to tell it like it is. And she says, time out. No, don't say it that way. So I appreciate her too. Narcan. How many have heard of Narcan? Yeah. So actually Councilman Mishler, Aaron Mishler, contacted me soon after I took over as chief and suggested that asked if we had Narcan. I said, no. He said, why not? I said, I don't know. He said, would you be open to it? I said, sure. It was about a half-hour training class. Every officer on the street has Narcan with them. And to this date, we've, I believe, saved 2 or 3 lives with Narcan. One of them I actually witnessed myself. I was riding with one of our officers, and the call came in. We responded, and somebody had overdosed, and my guys gave him Narcan and brought him back. And it was pretty neat to see in real time how quickly that works. And again, those of you seen that we've had a little scourge here lately of overdoses, including quite a few deaths from fentanyl laced illegal drugs. So Narcan has definitely saved lives, and it's been especially important with this uptick. So to kind of wrap it up here, and I want to leave a little bit of time for a few questions if there are any, is the main thing. Sorry, somebody have a question already? Working towards a fundamental change in our department culture by holding accountable and either coaching up or coaching out those that don't want to get on board. I'm willing to do that. I think I said that first time I was here. I have high standards and high expectations of our department. It starts with me, but I expect that of everybody because that's what's owed when you serve. You don't serve yourself, you serve this community. If you can't get on board with that, then we got to what? Coach them out? Adrian's nodding his head. That's his saying. I co-opted it. No shame. But the flip side of that is I also want to champion and celebrate good police work. We have great men and women at our department that do the job with honor day in and day out. The stories that you see in the news, wherever that may be, that's a very small percentage. Okay, that's any profession. Any doctors in the room? Doctors kill 250,000 people a year. That's crazy to think of that, right? Mistakes get made, okay? In every profession. Ours is no different. Well, we expect and want that standard. Sometimes it's not met. What's expected after that is for us to hold people accountable, and that's what we're doing. But when we go above and beyond, I want to celebrate that. I want to reward that, and I want to champion that because, like I said, there are great officers that literally put their lives on the line, have saved other lives, that do things behind the scenes that even I don't see a lot of the time. Something simple as helping push a car out of traffic. People say, well, that's your job. You're right, it is. But if you do that professionally, that word spreads. So that's the type of standard that we want to hold. So in closing, I appreciate the opportunity to come here and update you a little bit on some of the things that we're working on, some of the things that we've gotten done, and some of the things that are still in progress. And the fact of the matter is, I don't use this as an excuse, but right now our department's 22 officers short. That's a nationwide trend. Depending on where you go, it's worse than others. That's strictly openings. We're about 30 people operationally short, which means if you're at the academy or you're in training, you really don't count yet. We have a couple people on medical leave, so those things add up. And when you're talking about 30 people, think about an organization that you might be affiliated with. If a quarter of your staff is gone, what kind of bind does that put you in? So I have cautioned the command staff we're not going to use that as an excuse, though. We're still going to move forward. We're going to have to reprioritize things down to 3 or 4 projects at a time. but we're still going to move forward. We're not going to be status quo and just make excuses and go, well, we're short, so we can't police. Yes, we can. And we will do it professionally. So thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with you today. If anybody has any questions, what's my time look like? Did I use it all up? Oh,
We got 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Oh, geez.
Hey, Chris, just make sure you repeat the question.
I got to repeat the question. All right. Yes.
So coming out of the COVID emergency, there are a lot of things now that are kind of going back to normal, but some things that are just different. I mean, what do you see different as things sort of get?
So question is coming out of the COVID situation, how are things changing or? For us, not much, because from day one of COVID, we still had to do our jobs. We're still expected to go to calls, still expected to go to people's homes. It was a scary time in the beginning for law enforcement because we didn't have the data that we do now. You know, it ripped through the department just like any other place. We worked our way through it. We even had this is scary, but we had worked out a deal with the FOP that actually, from myself down to the captains, could count as manpower. And we actually had to go out on the street and work. That's scary. Okay, you don't. It's been a while since I've done that. So you know, that was the biggest piece. Was we didn't get to work from home. We had to show up. We did it with professionalism, like I said, and there were some times that we were really short with people out. So we weathered the storm, and I think we're stronger on the backside of it.
This past week, we had 3 more mass shootings. Because of the point where we're almost desensitized because we have so many. 390 million guns in the country, that's probably not surprising. But one of the tools that they have for mass shootings prevention is state red flag laws. Indiana is one of about 17 states that has a red flag law, which basically means that the person is deemed a danger to himself or others. He can be brought before a judge, incarcerated for 10 days, take his weapons away. I asked judges about this a couple of years ago, why that statute is so seldom used. Only a handful of times it's been used here in ELKR County. I'm wondering how many times your officers have used it, and are they even aware that it exists?
So the question is concerning red flag laws and how it pertains. Indiana is one of those states. How many times our officers have encountered that, used it? Are they aware of that tool? Yes, they are. I don't have those numbers off the top of my head. I will tell you that it's challenging, just like anything else in law enforcement. You have to have somewhat of proof or evidence that these things happen to be able to act on that. So it can't just be, hey, Bob's got a gun and he's threatening to shoot up the McDonald's. There takes some investigation into that and some proof, and it has to go beyond the he said, she said. So I think while well-intentioned, it's not as easy as one might think, would be my answer. Yes, sir.
In South Bend a couple of years ago, the cop shot and killed a guy, and his body cam was not functioning. Could that happen here, or why not?
The question was, there was a shooting in South Bend a few years ago where the body cam was not functioning. Could that happen here? It has happened here. It happened in 2016, a Norman Gary shooting. We had 3 officers that were present there, and none of those body cams worked. That was the start of making sure that we have a system that functions and that always works. So we're constantly auditing that. We're reviewing videos to make sure that, is it widespread or is it just 1 or 2? Because it's technology and it does fail. There's no fail safe with technology. Sometimes the narrative gets to be that, well, the officers turned it off. And that may be the case in some instances, but we certainly don't want that to happen, because to me, it's a lifesaver. If you have, and the body cam only tells one part of the story. Okay, it's one vantage point and it is video. Okay, if I have a body cam mounted on my chest, it doesn't show what my eyes are seeing. My chest might be turned this way and my eyes might be turned towards a threat over here, and the body cam may not pick that up. So while it's a great tool, and I certainly champion it because I think it saves more officers than it hurts. Certainly wouldn't want to be without it.
The uprising in the perception of the police, especially the Black and brown community, around you, what efforts are being taken to bring relationships and to show that police are important in our community?
Question was police relationships in the Black and brown community, particularly youth. Well, one of those answers is sitting at the table with you. Adrian has a vast experience with that. He works with our juvenile supervisor, Brandon Roundtree. Brandon's very heavily involved in the communities, particularly the Black and brown community, and particularly with juveniles. We always strive to have great relationships with everybody, but all that we can control is our part of it. And I tell this to everybody. There's another part to that, and that's the community itself. We're not miracle workers by any stretch. While we can, and I'm the first one to say that we can always improve things, especially along with those relationships. The other side of that, and I hate to even use sides because there shouldn't be sides. It should be all of us together, but unfortunately that doesn't happen. We're always looking for ways to better interact, better ways to serve. We've sat and just listened to what people's concerns are. That's a big part of it. You do all the talking, you don't listen, you miss a lot. So that was a big part of it starting out for us, particularly during, with the riots and everything else that was going on surrounding George Floyd. The best thing you can do is just say, yeah, we make mistakes sometimes. That was wrong. We don't want to do that. But the flip side of that is there's still bad people that the police have to arrest. There's still bad people that the police are going to have to use force. That's a reality. And what happens in society is we either go all the way this way or we go all the way this way. And there seems to be lost is that middle ground where, yes, I can expect our officers to be professional and treat everybody with respect, but I can also expect the community to back us up when we do it right. And they have the right to be upset when we do it wrong. So I think part of it is just being honest. I mean, Adrian and I talk about this all the time. It's just put it out there and just listen. And if it makes sense and it's something that you can work on and put into play, then do so. And if it's not, then it's fine to push back, I think. Did that answer? Yes, sir.
What are the total number of funded police positions?
143. The question was how many total funded police officer positions? 143 for the city of Elkhart. Yes, sir.
I'm kind of curious as to where we stand as far as our total pay package relative to everyone around us. Are we gaining or losing officers relative to that?
The question was our pay package and how we kind of stand up against other departments. Well, I know our starting pay is right there at the top here locally. I think we're maybe 10th, 12th in the state, give or take. So, the pay is, it's always a concern, but I think it goes beyond pay. The mayor and I talk about this all the time, that yes, pay is in any line of work. If you pay enough, you're going to get the best people, but part of it's our culture too. I've heard people say, wow, you guys are on the news a lot. I don't know if I want to come there. Well, that's what we got to do. So, you know, pay is just one piece of that. The other part is tools, training, equipment. You know, we have a take-home car policy where officers have their cars to take home and they can use them. That's tough navigating with gas prices the way they are, but we're managing. So it's kind of a total package thing. I think all those things play a hand in it. And let's be frank, last time was a 0.9% unemployment rate. Maybe that's changed. But we're not only competing against other departments, we're competing against every other employer in the county. So it's tough. And, you know, when things are actually our best employment rates at the police department are when things are bad in Elkhart County, which I wish we could, you know, navigate that better. So anybody else? Any online questions?
I didn't see any.
Okay. All right.
There are a few people that I would come and pull with the hook, and you're not one of them.
Oh, feel free. You wouldn't be the first one. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. And I know that you and your wife are big fans of the garden. In fact, I know you're members, and we always give our speakers passes to the garden as a thanks. And I maybe you'll consider giving them to someone that maybe doesn't have a membership, or maybe who hasn't been to the garden. Adrian, have you been to Wellfield? Yeah. We'll get you there again. Thank you so much. I have to say a little personal story with Chris. After he and his wife purchased their company, he came and talked to us because Wellfield had actually used that company in the past. And that part of the conversation was pretty short, if I recall, because Chris is pretty straightforward. I think it was a good hour and a half that we sat and enjoyed talking. And I gotta say, I have really appreciated your honesty, your community support that you've demonstrated. I know you're involved with Premier Arts and things like that with your kids. I was really impressed from day one, and that was several years ago. And it meant a lot to me. And it meant a lot to me when you became chief, because it certainly told me that there was someone leading our police department that was very, very invested in this community. And I appreciate all of those follow-ups to things that you came and talked to us about, particularly with those positions which are going to focus a little more on mental health. I know that's something that everyone, internally and externally, so important. So thank you again for coming today. Thank you for those thoughtful questions. And I'm glad you asked, Larry, about the number of positions, because Chris, when you said the new facility, or when it was first discussed, you were at about 85 officers. Did I hear that right?
That was the old facility.
That was the old facility. Yep. And looking at that now, it's what, 100? Would you say 140? Yeah, I'd say that's a need for growth. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, again, for those thoughtful questions. Thank you for being here today. Thanks, Steve, for checking everybody in, for being here today. Rob, for the opening. And Bill, thank you again for helping us raise funds. These meetings always are a team effort, and I appreciate everyone, whether you're here or whether you're organizing it. It's just a fantastic group, and I appreciate being a part of it. Rotary's adjourned. Have a great rest of the week.